Welcome to FEO on the Air, the voice of the festivals and events industry in Ontario. This week, it's Supplier Spotlight with your host, Jay Nijhuis. Hello and welcome to FEO on the Air Supplier Spotlight. I'm Jay Nijhuis, your host, and today we have the pleasure of having two very special guests on the podcast. Kyle Sipkens and Jake Rice, two of our suppliers who have created a very successful award-winning entertainment company, INCIRQUE. Morning, guys. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Kyle, maybe you could take a couple of minutes, tell us about yourself, where you're from, how long you've been a performer, the types of performances that you do, and then when you're done, Jake, you could do the same. That would be great.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Kyle, for anyone who doesn't know, founder of INCIRQUE. I've been performing now for 21 years since I started in 2004 when I learned how to walk on stilts for a show while I was still a student in theater school at the University of Windsor. And I co-founded a company back then. And now since 2019, INCIRQUE has been growing, still doing stilt performances, but also growing to do busker shows and artist curation and management as a busker curator for a number of festivals and programs, as well as doing on-site management things and circus workshops. So a whole variety of things that have grown over the years.
Jake.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jake. I'm a regular performer with INCIRQUE and creator of the Jake in the Box show. I've been a professional performer for about 5 years now. I got my start in training while I was in high school and that doing a lot of theater. And then after a couple of years hiatus, once I met Kyle, I had the opportunity to pursue performing as a career. And since then, I've been a stilt walker, I'm frequently a juggler, and I've created my own 30-minute juggling show.
Excellent. And you guys have a street performance called the Lucky Barber.
Yeah, so I started a show. So the same way that Jake has a Jake in the Box show, the 30-minute performance, I have a busker street show called the Lucky Barber Show, which is basically 30 minutes of dad jokes and danger. It's based on a vintage barber. It's got classic vaudeville meets modern street theater with cigar box juggling, knife juggling. I stand on boots of nails. So I perform that regularly at festivals and events, as well as busker programs like the Distillery District, St. Colfa Square, and the Harbourfront Center here in Toronto.
So just the boring Tuesday night.
Yeah, just juggling knives, trying
With
to keep
knives.
all my fingers.
So let's spend a couple of minutes talking about INCIRQUE. How did it start? When did it start?
So INCIRQUE itself was a continuation of the work that I've been doing since 2004. It was founded in 2019. The work that I've been doing has grown so much. What started, I thought I was going to be an actor when I was studying in theater school at the University of Windsor. I thought I was going to be on stage at Stratford or Buddies in Bad Times. And what really kept going was performing at festivals and events, from learning to walk on stilts first, and then getting regular work and thinking, wow, I should learn to do other stuff like juggling, fire breathing, regular, ordinary things. And INCIRQUE has become a culmination of all that work, whether it's as a performer or as a curator for festivals and events like the Bala Cranberry Festival or Mount Forest Fireworks, or I work with Royal Botanical Gardens. We do a number of programs with them as well, where we program both ourselves, but also design programs that incorporate other buskers. So we can scale it to having a couple of performers or a couple of shows to having almost a full-blown busker festival within a program, like Bala, where we do like 3 rotating busker shows for different roaming performers and installation acts to develop a full program throughout the day. And then, like you said, INCIRQUE has become the award-winning company that it has, because we've also wanted to make sure that the work that we're doing is also always equitable for the communities that we work with, but also the performers that we work with. We want to make sure that it's always beneficial for the performers that we're part of, that we maintain certain industry standards like fair pay equity, when we're working with Pride Toronto, for instance, we were thrilled to be the busker curator for that again this year, doing roaming buskers throughout the Church Street Fair at Pride. And we wanted to make sure that for Pride, we were prioritizing these paid opportunities for performers who were from the 2S LGBTQIA plus community, because it's something really meaningful. It's something we both experienced ourselves, but when you are part of that community performing at Pride, it's something unlike anything else that you've done before, because instead of just performing a character really well, you actually get to live yourself authentically and full size in a safe space. And it's something that's really meaningful for everybody. So that's INCIRQUE kind of encapsulates a lot, but it's not just our career. It's kind of our passion.
Well, I mean, I've known you, I started with FEO in 2018, and just in that short period of time to now, your company has grown leaps and bounds. I mean, you just recently won a FEO award for entertainment agency. So you've assembled this incredible, for lack of a better term, stable of talent that you now, hire out to events. And it's not just you two guys running the show anymore. So that's got to be a real change as well for you.
Yeah, well, what's really nice is being performers ourselves is instead of having to maintain a roster, these are our colleagues. These are people we work alongside. So anytime a festival or a client comes to us with what their needs are, we're able to just think like, of course, we know exactly who would be a great fit for that. And they're people that we work alongside, but it also helps us, we know what their needs are, what their show lengths or set lengths usually are, and we can find out what their needs are, uh, what's the downtime they need between sets. We don't want an artist to be burned out. We want them to have a long career the way that we all hope to have a long career. I know I do. It's been
Yeah.
21 years and I can't retire anytime soon. So
Well, when you're in front of a giant crowd of people 24/7 and you have to be on at all times, being burnt out or being exhausted or, miserable is not the look you want to have. It's not going to generate success for you or for the festival or event you're working with. So that's a great strategy.
yeah, no, of course. I mean, it's a festival. We want the experience to always be fun. We want it to be light. We want it to be something that everyone's having a good time doing. And we've had it at places where if the audience is worried about you, they're not having a good time.
No, it completely takes them out of the experience.
I know that you guys are very passionate about certain organizations and charities that you work with, that you perform with. I thought maybe you could just take a moment and share some of those as well. Just again, a deep dive into what you and your organization's all about.
Yeah, of course. I mean, well, obviously, one of the first ones that we're involved with is with FEO, which we love being part of Festivals and Events Ontario. We also are part of TIO as well, the Tourism Industry Association of Ontario. We are involved with a number of things. So a few years ago during the pandemic, obviously the busker program at Harbourfront Centre was put on hiatus, but then it didn't return after the pandemic. So we actually led an initiative to try to bring buskers back to Harbourfront, which put a real spotlight on busking in the city, and kind of put us as kind of a go-to for people to ask questions and to find out about it. And we're thrilled that the busker program has actually come back this year with I would say great success so far. People are really enthusiastic about seeing it back. The performers are excited to be back. So I'm volunteering this year as the co-curator for that program, and helping to run it there with the Harbourfront Centre.
Which is a little new this year as well, is the Harbourfront Centre is allowing us to work kind of in tandem with the existing programming. So previously, where a festival or an event might be happening elsewhere on the campus, the busker performance spots would be blocked out for the weekend. But this year, they've actually allowed us to help animate those spaces and spread the programming throughout the entire campus.
Which is great because they've got a lot of things going on, like their markets on Saturdays and their night market as well. There's a lot of fantastic programming, and in the past where we might have just been blocked out for the full weekend. We're actually helping to animate the full site. But I would say the press are seeking getting the programming back got also helped spread the excitement about busking across the city. So like the distillery district here in Toronto also reached out to us and said, this is fantastic. We want buskers back too. We just didn't know who to talk to. So we were able to help liaise that as well and help them in redesigning their program to be something that would work well for artists. From that, we also did, we wanted to create a resource because people were just sending us a lot of messages asking what, where do we go? Where do we apply? So we created an online resource as well called BuskTO, which is an account that you can follow to an Instagram and Facebook page, which has like all the links where the applications are, great resources of what you can do for busking in the city of Toronto. And also a place where you can share what you're doing as a performer in Toronto. If you're performing on the pitch, you can tag it and we'll share it out. It's a great way to see something, because finding busking spaces in Toronto has become difficult. There's a lot of public spaces have become private spaces, or there's just not as many opportunities. So we really wanted to preserve these spaces, and it's the advocacy for that is something that is really important to us.
And one of the results of that advocacy has actually been being able to work with the City of Toronto in creating new spaces and new opportunities for buskers. And so because of that, in partnership with the City of Toronto, ourselves, and the Waterfront BIA, we've actually been able to have and program street performers at the Jack Layton Ferry Terminal, where you would get on the boat to go to the Toronto Islands.
Yeah, which was awesome because again, we were contacted by someone from the City of Toronto, Doug Bennett, who's awesome, by the way.
Hey, Doug.
I don't think Doug's on the call, but we'll make sure that he knows he got a shout out. But they had an issue where not an issue, but they really wanted to create an initiative to improve the experience of going to Center Island. And one of the major things that you deal with is the long lineups at the ferry terminal. So they wanted to improve the experience. And they thought, oh, well, there used to be buskers down there. So we helped work to create a program of having buskers to animate during peak times over the summer weekends. And that started as something just on like key dates last year. The Waterfront BIA came in with sponsorship to basically help provide an honorarium for buskers to be there. And, what was supposed to be a one-time thing this year unexpectedly came back and has now tripled in size. And we're waiting to find out if it's grown even more. And we may have buskers there every single weekend day.
Wow.
And potentially also on the island, because we were able to do some shows on the island last year as well, and it saw a great response as well. People loved having that animation extend into what's a kind of a gem in the city. But having the waterfront, which is a major destination for Toronto, looking at buskers as a way of solving issues of how do we create a draw, how do we improve the experience, using entertainment as that tool is something that has seen an overwhelming response and an increased demand, where they're like, yes, we want more of this because it's fantastic, which is then also creating more work for buskers.
Well, I mean, Disney figured that out, right? When you're standing in line for an hour for a ride, every time you go around a different corner, they've got something there to entertain people while they're in line, keep them happy, keep their spirits up. So, I mean, waiting in line for the ferry is probably the most boring thing you could do, but you throw buskers in the mix and now it's an experience and it's fun. And you're on the boat in no time and you haven't even thought about the fact you just stood in line for 20 minutes. So it's a very cool initiative. I love that.
Even part of that work was delaying people getting into that long lineup from the island side. So not only were we animating the lineup on the mainland side, but by setting up where we were on Center Island, we were able to kind of get a show started based around the ferry schedule and kind of hold people back from joining that lineup. So then it's an easier walk right onto the boat.
Because otherwise, everyone wants to fly. You know, as soon as the sun starts to go down at the end of the day, everyone heads to the ferry. But
Right.
if there's something there that makes them want to stay a little bit longer, it helps to extend that time, so not everyone's waiting in line at the same time. It's like you might as well stay and watch a show. If you know there's going to be a line anyways.
Yeah. Perfect. Traffic control.
Exactly, and that's something that we've done. That actually, at some festivals, we have literally done traffic control.
Well, that's actually where I want to go next, because when the three of us chatted offline before this podcast, we kind of tossed around some ideas as to what this conversation would be about. And we kind of came into three different categories. And the first category was how entertainers can be much more than just, quote unquote, entertainment for festival and event organizers. And I recall quite clearly during COVID, Kyle, that you guys were so involved in crowd control and social distancing and using your stilt characters and other performers to do those kinds of jobs to help businesses that were reopening and trying to, keep their customers safe. And that's entertainment, but it was so much more. So maybe you could just talk a little bit about, the lessons you learned in that 2020 to 2022 timeframe there, where that was basically what you guys were doing to stay in business and to keep performing.
Well, even before the pandemic, something that we were doing was using an event organizer's mindset in what we're doing. So while we're performing, looking at things like bottlenecks in traffic, or if there's places that people aren't going into a vendor area down a side street, or if you're BIA and people aren't really making it into the businesses from the street fair, finding ways to bridge that connection and be a catalyst for those things to create something happening somewhere else. And that's from the experience of being an event organizer as well as a performer. So when the pandemic hit, something that we thought about was, what can we do to help? And there was two main things that actually came to mind. It was not instantaneous. We had a lot of time to think. But the first thing was juggling mental health. We wanted to create a video YouTube series that paired a juggling lesson with a mental health coping strategy. And that kind of came from the fact that I happened to be doing therapy at the same time and realized that the things I was doing when I was juggling was also helping my mental health without realizing it. The things were actually perfectly aligned. So we wanted to share that information through a YouTube series, and that's become also a talk and workshops and other things. But one of the things that thankfully was able to help us keep getting work during the pandemic was doing things that we were already doing, like crowd control and changing our stilt walking characters into physical distancing officers.
Enter the 10-foot tall crossing guards.
Yeah. And we were able to do variations on that as well.
Mm-hmm.
We had like a key one that we did, which looked like crossing guards and had stop and go signs. So we were able to essentially take something that was a very stressful time as people were trying going from being in lockdowns to going back out into society and going, I don't know what the rules are. I don't know what to engage. I don't, how do I navigate all of these different challenges and what other people's comfort might be, and using clown and play strategies, like a simple game of stop and go with crossing guard stop signs, to help actually function social distancing, encourage masking, and do the things that festivals were also looking for strategies to do, because they had to do these things in order to come back. It's like, we have to have a mask mandate. We have to encourage social distancing. So we're the perfect on-site influencer to do that.
Yeah. And after so many months of feeling isolated, it was a great opportunity to help people remember that we can still play and we can still have a good time. We just have to do it a little bit differently and with safety in mind.
Which is something
Robin from Mount Forest Fireworks has posted a really nice thing in the chat. You guys are amazing advocates for busker and entertainer initiatives. Your work behind the scenes has shone a light on the importance of their and their colleagues' work. Harborfront Busker program is a perfect example of their passion behind their career. She loved your juggling series, and she learned to juggle from it and learned mental health tips to help through the pandemic. So that's nice feedback.
Thank you,
Thank
Robin.
you, Robin.
Also, Robin's juggling has gotten very good, and I know that she's going to have her own show soon. Like, she's been sending us videos along the way, and it's getting fantastic. I think she's actually even done it on like a rollerbola.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. Robin, can you confirm in the chat if you future insert performer, you're hired? But it is something that, talking about not just the pandemic, but what's happened since, is buskers bring this unique thing where we're able to, through our interaction and through how we do things, we actually are able to help spark joy in people. And that's what we want to do, is we want to get people to help play. We want them to have fun. We want them to forget their worries for a little while. And, in the approach that we take to our work and how we, whether it's as stilt characters or through a juggling show, the play that we authentically connect to in ourselves and the joy that we connect to helps other people to connect to theirs as well and play along with us. And that's, buskers are really, all entertainment is wonderful, but, buskers really bring that unique approach that is also versatile, and obviously we're resilient in a number of situations as well.
It's true. It's true what they say, right? If you love what you do, you'll never have a day of work in your life because it doesn't feel like work at all, right? It's just what you love to do. So I'm thinking, now that we've talked about, what you did during COVID and what you're doing currently with the Harbor Front, is there any of those initiatives that you think a festival or event organizer could work into their planning process? From your experience going to festivals and events, are there opportunities that you see that where maybe somebody could, maybe they should have a busker there for crowd control or for giving out directions, or do you think maybe they should have this or that? Because there are a lot of festival and event organizers on the call today that are probably anxious to hear what they're missing out on.
Obviously we see buskers, we see them at every festival. But aside from that, yeah, it's something that you can incorporate in any scale, whether it's, bringing in a busker show or having roaming performers. One of the things that we do as a roaming performer is also act as an event ambassador. We want to, if you're a BIA or municipality, we want to take the fun that's happening on the street and help bring it to the doorstep of the businesses as well on that street. That's part of why we're there, and we know that. Or if it's creating key moments through busker shows at key intersections. There's really ways to scale it, whether it's having rotating shows throughout the day or if it's finding key moments based on budget and need. But something that we do as performers ourselves who also curate is we really try to, instead of building a schedule and trying to find people to fill that, each slot, this is what we need. We try to work with performers who we think would be a good fit for an event thematically or through the experience that they bring. And then from what their needs are, try to build something that will be organic and something sustainable for them. Because again, we want them to have long careers. We want them to have a great experience and, not be, drained from the heat or from having to do too long of sets that is beyond what they can do based on the skill they do. Because obviously, depending on what somebody does, it might be more like a sprint than a marathon in the impact it has on their body. So we try to kind of reverse engineer our programming, which is something I think that can be helpful for other organizers, is reaching out and being like, how many sets can you do in a day? What is the rest that you need between each set? When you're doing multiple days, is that impacted? And really try to build, it's obviously more time consuming, which we know that event organizers don't have any more time, but that's also something where sometimes bringing in an outside curator can help as well, because we're able to help facilitate those conversations and those needs.
And from a problem solving perspective for a festival producer, you can look at leveraging your entertainment to fill the in-between spaces. So that's where, for example, a roaming performer would be really great because it helps extend out your main stage programming to the places that are, say you have two stages at opposite ends of the festival. How do you fill that space in between with animation so that there's a draw and something to kind of keep your audience, your guests entertained as they work their way through the vendors market.
Or if you have one music stage, is what do you do between the sets while the bands reset? How do you help animate that? Um, just as a couple of examples.
Well, yeah, I think that's actually a good segue for the next topic we decided we want to talk about, and that is, it's funny, earlier you said we're working with the BIAs because we're trying to get people into the businesses, and we know that's our job. Um, I find that interesting because as a festival and event planner, say that's me in this situation, I know exactly what my expectations are of you as performers. I want you to uh, entertain the guests. I want you to be on time. I want you to play X amount of shows, whether it's downtown at the city square or on a stage or as a roaming performer. But what I, as an organizer, may not be aware of is what your expectations are as performers. You touched on a few there about how many shows a day should a performer do? What is a logical and a responsible number? I would not know that because I'm not a street performer in costume, juggling and doing acrobatics and all that stuff. So that's where I would need you as a performer to make that clear to me that no, 5 shows a day that's crazy. 3 is the max we can do. And this weekend it's going to be 40 degrees with humidity. So we need a cooling center or a room that our performers can take their costume off and cool down. Things like that. Maybe you could just share a few of those expectations from a performer's standpoint that an organizer of a festival event might not be aware of.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you gave a number of great examples. Ultimately, as performers, we want to be able to do the best job that we can. We want to create the best experience and have the best shows that we can. And again, having that conversation with an organizer helps in what we need to do. If it's having the amount of break time that we need between shows, if it's because it's going to be 40 degrees that weekend, is there somewhere that they can go between shows or between sets that has air conditioning to cool down and get their core temperature down? Things like having ice cold water instead of just room temperature water sitting out also helps cool you down, especially if you're already overheating a little bit. As a couple of examples,
I think in the case of extreme heat, I think a certain level of flexibility is also appreciated, where, like, for example, maybe if I'm scheduled to walk on stilts for 2 hours that day, maybe I can break it up instead into 2 1-hour shifts with a small break in the middle instead.
Yeah. And as we're seeing weather kind of changing a little bit, we're seeing, more extreme and longer durations of high heat in the summer. We're also, seeing more mild falls. But, depending on the season, finding out what that is. Like, we also do winter programs, and there's some days where, heavy snowfall comes out of nowhere, or there's just extremely cold days. So having not only that planning in place of what a performer might need in advance, whether it's making sure they have water, or if it's a performer who's not likely to be able to go out and get food on their own between sets, waiting in a food truck line with everyone else, because nobody wants to see any of the characters from Disneyland with their heads off waiting in a food truck. Same way with performers, you might not necessarily want to break that illusion. They also might not want to spend their time on their feet between sets. So if there's things that they can get, but also just based on the seasonal needs, and having that conversation on a daily basis, going, okay, today's going to be extreme cold, so I'm going to do shorter sets with warming breaks between, and just kind of helping to make something workable on the fly. Even for winter events, if we're planning on doing stilts, we typically bring a ground option in case if the ground's going to be icy, or whatever the weather might throw at us. We try to build in planned resilience.
Some of the things I was thinking of too, what about security? I mean, you guys are in the middle sometimes of hundreds of people circling around. You can't really see all the way around it. Is there a volunteer they assign to you, or a security person that kind of hangs with you in case of any issues? Have you had that experience?
It can really depend on the location. For example, we were doing a winter program at Sankofa Square in Toronto, and on my first day there, part of my briefing was they offered to have security follow me. Um, Sankofa Square is right downtown Toronto. There's a lot of intersectionality and a lot of different levels of need. Um, and I appreciated the thought, but I was worried about breaking the illusion and kind of who is this stilt walker, but why is there a security guard kind of circling around them? In the end, I really did not need my own version of a Secret Service detail.
Although it could be fun.
Could be fun. But I did communicate with them and let them know that like I generally have my head kind of on a constant swivel. I try to be very aware of who is around me at all times especially when I'm on stilts, because in a lot of cases you are in a compromised position. It takes one good shove for you to go down. Or
I mean, everything is like, there's not one size that fits all. There's not one festival that, like, every plan, every approach has to be matched to the festival, matched to the space, which is, one of the reasons why we're so thankful that we go, like many of the festivals that we go back year after year, so that we know the flow, we know what the needs are. Where like for buskers, for the most part, we're able to, maintain what we need. If we need to maintain a line around our crowd so that nobody walks through, it's usually pretty good. But at Sankofa, it's an especially challenging space with its own unique needs, and people walk through for their own reasons that they're not necessarily in control of themselves. So having security around during shows becomes more necessary there. When you're doing a community scale event, maybe not necessarily the same needs. One of the great things about when we perform together on stilts as roaming characters is we also work as a team and watch each other's back. So in the way that we position ourselves and how we're working together, not only are our heads on a swivel, we're also able to kind of watch the other person as well if something is coming. So it's
Yeah, that's a good idea.
We're more entertaining together. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, the only other thing on the list I thought of was parking. Obviously, you've got gear that needs to be unloaded, and sometimes you go to a festival or event, and it's in the downtown core of a small town, and they've got parking a mile and a half away, and you take a hayride in to the festival. Obviously, they would need to make it easier for you guys to get your car in somewhere close where you can access the gear that you need.
Which is also a great point.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up. We rarely get to pack light with the stuff that we need to bring. So also, taking that for a long walk is very challenging, and sometimes, means that you have extra strain on the body before you even start. So we try to work with event organizers that we work with and having a plan to have parking as close as we can, especially if we're using that as our lockup as well between sets. So if that's where we're going to put gear safely between things, having parking as close as possible for performers is helpful. And that can also, if a performer's there all day, or if you have different performers coming in, like musicians throughout the day, developing a strategy to figure out how much parking you actually need, how much is going to be turning over, and how much is going to stay throughout the day. And also, sometimes having a volunteer or staff or security nearby there as well to help watch that, because most people are generally honest. Some people are not. Most people are very honest.
And again, this is just me trying to get festival and event organizers to kind of think outside the box, because there's a very, small list of what they expect you guys to do for them, but they may not be thinking about all these other things they could be doing to make your lives and your performances better. So that's why I thought I'd bring this up. So
we know event organizers have a lot on their plate.
Yes.
Sometimes literal fires to put out. And so, which is also one of the great things, and I know we're going to talk about this a little bit later. But one of the things that we love about working as an FEO supplier and working with FEO suppliers is having experienced people with you, is everyone's working as a team. When when weather comes in and high winds are coming, we all step in and hold on to a tent post to make sure it doesn't fly away. We all know what it's like being out there and the things that come up, and we all work together to problem solve. And having experienced festival professionals with you means that you have people who are ready to step up and step outside their role to work together to make sure that it's a success. And I think that's one of the reasons that so many festivals have been successful around the province, is that so many people are just willing to step up and lend a hand.
And I'm gonna just go on a limb here and guess that the reason why you come back to certain festivals over and over and over again, other than the organizer being a really swell person, is that a lot of these things are checked off that we've just been talking about. The way they take care of you, the way that you're treated, it goes a long way as to whether or not you're coming back for another year.
Yeah, well, we really try to build relationships with the clients that we work with. It's also great because like once we do a festival once, we already have ideas in mind of like what we can do the next year, like what we can do that will um, help fill a need that we saw for them. How can we help be a problem solver? But also we love being part of the communities that we go back to, every year. It's kind of like a homecoming. The summer feels weird if you don't go back there. It feels like you've missed a milestone, like you've missed a birthday. Like it's just like this something is different.
Right.
We love going back to communities year after year. We love celebrating along with them because it's also fun for us. But yeah, many of the event organizers that we work with also have such a strong focus on wanting to make sure that we're set up with the things that we need.
And that's awesome. That's really, really good. Because my worry would be that they, like I said, they have a very kind of narrow focus on what they want a performer to do, and then they hire someone. It's like, cool, that's taken care of. That's off my list. Let's move over to something else. And there are other things that need to be a part of that planning process, other than just, oh, they signed a contract saying they're going to come. Great. Let's worry about the amusement rides next, and we don't have to worry about the stilt performers anymore. They're just going to do their thing. So I'm very happy to hear that that's your experience. And I'm not really surprised because the people that I've met in this industry, that they strike me as exactly those kind of people to take care of people.
We always try to be as self-sufficient as we can. And for the most part, we just kind of plan on that we'll take care of the needs that we have. There's, some places that we work with regularly where they check in with us and just like, do you need anything? No. Okay. Like they know that we're going to, for the most part, have ourselves taken care of, but they're also wonderful in providing whatever hospitality you can. Especially if we're coming from out of town, they really want us to feel at home and that we have the things that we need. But again, every type of because we do so many different types of festivals, everything is also a little bit different. A music festival might be different than a busker festival, might be different than, a community festival. So like for a busker festival, some things that we've seen that are fantastic is because a lot of performers are coming from out of town and sometimes internationally. When they get to their hotel room, some of them have a little care package waiting for them. Just simple things that they might not have had time to, like a water bottle or
sunscreen,
mints, maybe a phone charger, like just little things in a care package that sometimes have been worked out through their sponsors as well. Just that helps take care of them throughout the day, which might not be necessary for every event, but really understanding what your specific needs are for your event. And that not every performer is looking for 1,000 brown M&Ms.
No. And there's been a lot of conversation in our industry about volunteer retention and things you can do to keep your volunteers around. I would think a lot of those philosophies could go towards your entertainment as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think so. If you're like, your volunteers will make or break your event, right? And so if you're not, like, they need to be treated very well because they want to be there. They're willing to come and help you. So yeah, you just got to help them out too.
Well, and that is something that we've seen post-pandemic, is that there are performers who, some of them just decided not to continue on. they the same way that maybe some people decided this was their opportunity to retire.
Right.
So some of the people that we worked with aren't working anymore. And same thing is, we want to make sure that the festival industry is able to continue to grow and thrive. And that's a reciprocal relationship, is we want all the festivals that we work with to continue to do well and grow. And same as, as event organizers, really wanting your suppliers to thrive and get the things that they need as well, so that we can continue that symbiotic relationship, because we need each other to continue
Yeah.
to continue on.
So the third thing that we were going to touch on, and we try really hard on these podcasts not to do hard sales pitches. That's not what these are about. These are about education and learning. But I've had some really good conversations with you too at conference about suppliers and growing the supplier program with Festivals and Events Ontario. For any suppliers that may be on the call now or may watch this or listen to this at a later date, can you just touch briefly on why being a supplier with Festivals and Events Ontario is beneficial to you as a company and as performers?
Yeah, I mean, so for myself as an individual, Festivals and Events Ontario has been integral to growing my business and to growing my career, and learning along the way. I don't know where my business or my career would be without it. And part of that is the conference every year, the learning that I was able to do there, the opportunity to showcase at Marketplace, the awards program, which is given an opportunity to really showcase some of the unique things that we do. And I think we've won a few awards now through that program.
Just a few.
Just a, but also something that is, something that I really try to explain to other suppliers is that FEO is more than the convention every year. It's not just about conference. It's about a year-long relationship. And this is our opportunity through things like these podcasts, through things like building new relationships at conference and meeting new people, but then opportunities to continue to check in and build those relationships throughout the year, because you're not just a supplier, you're not just your product or service that you offer. You are an event professional. You bring expertise. You have a network. You have ideas and things that you can share. You have insights into the festivals that you go to, and that's an opportunity throughout the year to continue to build those professional relationships. And we're extremely lucky that a lot of those professional relationships that started here through FEO have actually become friendships as well and have continued to grow, which has also meant that when you're at work, it doesn't always feel like work, because it's getting to see your friends as well. And like, that's just for myself now is kind of an established, but for Jake, it's emerging.
Even coming in as a newcomer to the festivals and events industry, the conference and the supplier marketplace and being part of the FEO suppliers has been a great opportunity to not only just make introductions to other festival and events professionals, but it's also been a great opportunity to kind of see the people behind the clipboards or the people behind the costumes. Because for example, when I'm meeting someone at a festival for the first time, it's kind of less of a priority. There's other things going on. We're getting ready to go and perform. Maybe you're ready to try and put out a fire or track down a volunteer that went missing. But at the conference and getting to meet people as the supplier instead of as the performer, it really does help kind of humanize us, I guess.
Well, yeah, this is like the same time, it's not a good time to talk to a performer in the middle of their show. we know it's not a great time to, really have those conversations while a festival is live, because your brain is probably in 3 different places, and then there's probably also something going in your ear through the walkie-talkie at the same. Like, we know when an event organizer is talking to us and they stop talking to us mid-sentence and just look out into the distance, it's because someone's talking in their ear through a walkie-talkie. It's just, it happens.
But at the same time, I think it would be a valuable resource for a festival and event organizer to bend your ear at the end of their event and get your feedback on what you experienced. Just like for an organization like ours, getting your feedback. We send out surveys and such after the conference every year to find out, what we did right, what we did wrong, what we could do better, and the feedback is invaluable. So, we thank you for that as an organization, and I'm sure your festival and event planners are also, quite happy to get that kind of feedback from you, from being soldiers right in the middle of the field.
Absolutely. If there's an opportunity that we see while we're performing that we can address or we can fix for them, we'll try to do that to the best of our ability and then communicate that with them. But if there is time, if that's not something that we're able to do in the moment, then that's where it's great to have those conversations kind of on our way out of the event or as everyone's kind of packing up at the end of the event.
Yeah.
Just have that quick little debrief. And if that's not possible, then an email or a phone call afterwards is always.
Some festivals also send like a survey after just for a bit of feedback, and that's an opportunity as well to have it so you have a resource to go back to later, which is helpful. But everyone who walks through your gate has a different experience, whether it's they're coming through as a visitor or whether they're coming through the back end, the backstage area as a performer. Everyone kind of brings a different perspective and a different eye, and as many of those perspectives and things as you can get, you can see not only how to improve the visitor experience, but also the performer experience, also the volunteer experience, also just so that you can see, because you can't be everywhere all at once. As many of those eyes and as many of those perspectives as you can get, it really helps to find those opportunities and build solutions together.
Well, gentlemen, that's all I have at this time. I'd love to open the floor now for any questions. If you have one, you can type it in the chat or you can just turn on your microphone and ask away. Now's the time.
Jay, I'm
Dave.
going to jump in and Kyle, it's kind of building on what you were just talking about. You guys have a unique perspective that being at a number of festivals over the year. Do you often share different things that you see at Festival A that might really help Festival C, D, or E, and share ideas? Say, hey, we saw this problem at this festival, and they came up with this solution. It would really work well for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the great things about being on stilts at an event is it literally gives you an aerial view. You're watching it from a low helicopter. We try not to, we try not to impede on something that is like a unique idea from a festival that is something unique to their programming. But when we see a solution that becomes a new best practice, we really try to share that information. And we've done that, whether it's an event organizer or if it's, a tourist area, how we can take some of the best practices that we've seen. And because a lot of times an event organizer faces the same challenges in different places. It's like, how do we get people down this area, or we have to spread through a long distance? How do we create new ways to move traffic, or people aren't getting out of their seats between bands? How do we get them to come visit? Finding those commonalities and sharing those best practices, going to performers who literally spend their year hopping from event to event is a great resource to find solutions that maybe your committee hasn't thought of yet.
Thanks, Dave. Anyone else? Oh, wait, Robin's asked a question in chat. If you could choose only one item to juggle for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Knives.
Yeah, gotta go.
And you can't save time.
Oh, I gotta go with knives because you don't need.
No, they just went right to the weapons, Dave. Right to the weapons, without hesitation. Right to the sharp, deadly objects.
They're sharp. They're flashy. And like Kyle said, they don't increase your insurance.
But also, once you're doing fire props, it's just everything smells like fire and gets. I used to do fire breathing, and it's just, everything's a little bit cleaner now, except for all the apple juice. But that's another story.
Are there any other questions? I don't see any hands up or anything. So at this time, I'm just going to say thank you very much, Kyle and Jake. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today during Supplier's Spotlight. and wish you the best of luck. I've been on your website, by the way. I've shared your links to the Lucky Barber Show and INCIRQUE in the chat. Your schedule looks jam-packed, so I don't think you're going to have to worry about being busy this summer. So we wish you the best of luck, and again, thank you so much for taking some time to be with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And also to anyone on, whether it's on the call right now or if you're watching the recording later, feel free to reach out to us. Our contact is on our website. You can also reach out to us through Instagram and Facebook. We're happy to take questions and answer anything anytime.
Well, again, thank you for being here. I do want to take a moment and plug our next FEO on the Air podcast, which is coming up next Tuesday, and it's a special one, a special 10:30 start time. Dave McNeil will be sitting in as special guest for Marnie as we have a long chat with the Culinary Tourism Alliance and the Ministry of Tourism, Culture, and Gaming to present Destination Delicious, Exploring Food Festivals and Culinary Tourism. That is next Tuesday, July the 15th. And if you check the newsletter that's going out tomorrow, there'll be the link there to register for the Microsoft Teams chat. So we hope to see you then. Again, thank you so much for joining us. This has been FEO on the Air. I'm Jay Nijhuis. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to FEO on the Air, the voice of festivals and events in Ontario.